Steve has volunteered to list.
This is the following Iberholmes Grove Middle School students received high honors for the first trimester of 2023-24, which means they received all A's in the first trimester. For the sixth grade, we have Cameron Slakovsky. I apologize, Cameron Slakovsky. For eighth grade, we had Nora Comrie, Corey Cotter, Isabella Gott, Addison Pekalski, Jasmine Salnier, and Leah Unger. Congratulations to all those folks on high honors in the first trimester.
Great job. Next up, public input. Anybody for public input? All right, I will hold public input open for the next 30 minutes, and if anybody comes along, they'll be allowed to speak in that time. I see Tyler is not here, so we'll skip that, but first I'll do it in order, maybe? That'd probably be a step in the right direction. Our students, our schools, Iberholmes Grove Middle School, 7th grade. Tom, you want to come on up with your crew?
Plug this in, because we got a little for you. No source found.
There you go.
There we go.
30 seconds.
So I'm gonna let you introduce yourselves, because you could probably introduce yourselves far better than I could introduce you. Okay.
I'm Juliana. I'm Elizabeth. And we are here today to talk about the Palace Theater 7th grade PPO. In the presentation, there are show details for theater, curriculum connections, and student testimonials.
This is just an audio, so the people that are watching at home can.
Who, what, when, where? Who? The 7th grade. What? Attended a live performance of Charles Dickens' classic tale, A Christmas Carol. When? December 20th, 2023. Where? The Palace Theater, Manchester, New Hampshire. When we arrived for the 10 o'clock show, we noticed how beautiful the theater was, and we immediately took our seats. Here, as you can see, we had good seats right in the center. We could easily see the set. You can see there, the set is very colorful. We noticed that as the people's mood changed, the colors of the lights had changed as well. For lunch, we had Domino's pizza, water, and cookies. Domino's ordered directly to the theater. The room we ate in was meant for cocktail parties. It was decorated and really nice. Here's my homeroom standing in front of the set. The set behind us is dark and dull. It makes us realize how important the lights to the show really is. This is a bridal homeroom. This is Mr. Cameron's homeroom. Here's my homeroom. This is Miss Duxbury's homeroom. We have been learning a lot about plot elements in fiction. Part of the PLA lab, we read The Christmas Carol to have a better understanding of the play. After the play, we filled out a plot diagram. The reading helped, but the play made us recognize the plot elements. This is the plot diagram we filled out. We are learning about plot and fiction. Here are some students with completed plot diagrams, and they're all smiling. Thank you for listening to our presentation. Is there any questions?
Questions, comments? Go ahead, Joe.
What was the best part of the play?
The best part of the play was, yeah, the ending will be pretty cool.
Because the play was over, or was it really?
No, it was a cool ending. Any other questions?
Go ahead, Cindy. Oh,
Sorry. Were you, did you read the story before you went to the play?
Yeah, we read it in ELA.
Did you like the book or the play better?
The play.
I'll ask one.
Go ahead.
Have you read Harry Potter? Any of the Harry Potter books?
I read a little bit of the first one.
I was just curious because the movie, the book, it's a big, which one's better, the play, the book, the play? Sometimes I was just curious.
Anybody else? Great job. Thank you for coming in.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. Uh-oh. All right. As I mentioned previously, jumped the gun, but Tyler's not here, so we'll skip over. Next up, behavioral health and wellness update. Sam is in or here.
Wow, you Zoom to me, so.
Hello.
I'm Sam Morgan, I'm the Director of Health and Wellness, so I'm going to be talking about our behavioral health and wellness in the district. So today, we're going to touch on our behavioral health advisory team, the work that we're doing there, our behavioral health department, and then also our nursing department. So our behavioral health advisory team is to remind those who's on that team. We have SAU and building administrators. So from Terry to Jody to principals, we have behavioral health staff, Seacoast Mental Health Center, the coalition, and then parents. Last time I came to the board in October, we talked about the different data that team was looking at and some priorities for work around behavioral health in the district. So since then, we put together some SMART goals and action steps, and we're taking steps to reach these goals. So today I want to share with you all the goals that we have written down and kind of where we're at in reaching these goals so far. The first goal is around our Tier 1 fidelity. If you remember in the beginning of the school year, I reported out on fidelity data, our Tier 1 practices, we were at 44%, which was a 12% improvement from the previous year. So the team has set the goal to improve again another 10% this year, which is really exciting. So each of our schools set Tier 1 goals specifically for their schools. They're sharing out those goals with their schools. They're using the Swiss data in their Tier 1 teams to figure out what parts of the building or what behavior challenges they need to improve. So they're improving their database decision making. They're also increasing their accountability with what they're doing within their Tier 1 to the whole schools. They're using their team leaders and their department heads to share what they're working on in Tier 1 to get feedback from more teachers and to roll out to the whole school staff. So some of the data and the work that they're doing in the Tier 1 team is now being rolled out to the whole school through faculty meetings, which is really exciting. This is an advancement of our Tier 1 practices. Over the next month, our Tier 1 teams are inventorying all their practices. They're inventorying what funding or PD needs that they have to support those practices. So we're just increasing our thoughtfulness and our alignment around our Tier 1 strategies, which is huge. Our second goal is around restorative practices. We identified this was low for our fidelity inventory, and we have high ISS OSS rates in this district compared to the state numbers. And as part of our strategic plan to onboard some restorative practices in this district. So our schools have developed school exploration team, and our behavioral health advisory team is our district kind of steering committee for this work. And we're starting to research what this would look like to bring restorative practices in, because there's so many parts to restorative practices. So we're meeting with some other schools who are doing this work. We're starting to research our training or consultant entities to help us in this work. So that way, hopefully we can have a clear fleshed out plan for what direction we want to go in with restorative practices and bring that to you all to talk about before we just kind of jump in. Also number 3 there, this is continuing our behavior data collection procedures. So as you all know, we got all of our teachers into Swiss. So we're cleaning up our data integrity related to our behavior discipline. So now we're taking it one step further. Now that we have all that discipline data, it looks a lot better. The integrity is a lot better this year. Now, how are we collecting that data? How are we pulling it out to share out to the school board, to the state, to ensure that we're aligned across our schools and reporting on that data? So other priorities that our behavioral health advisory team focuses on is, again, just data decision making in general, but we have a progress monitoring plan that we use as part of our team to look at data throughout the year and every year to see, are we making progress within behavioral health? So we're still fine tuning what those data points are, if they're helpful data, if we look at it this way versus this way. So that's a big part of that team work right now is, beyond next year, how do we know this is working? And so we're improving that process. And then also we're keenly aware that the based data platform that we have been utilizing the Project Aware grant goes away with the grant in September. So figuring out what intervention or what data points that we're putting into that platform we want to continue in our internal systems. So we're in that phase of really thinking that through. District alignment and prioritization of resources and strategies. I know Jody, when she came a couple of weeks ago, she talked about aligning the SEL programs. So that's a part of it, right? Ensuring that all of our SEL work is aligned across the district. Our procedures leading up to our SEL programs are aligned. How we're utilizing Seacoast Mental Health Center or behavior consultants, thinking that through thoughtfully, ensuring that whatever PD we're bringing in is aligned with what we're already doing, right? Or we're being thoughtful about choosing what PD we're bringing in. So a lot of the work of our behavioral health advisory team is talking about that, planning ahead, really ensuring that we're working together. Behavioral health development, as I just said, that's something we're constantly talking about and focusing on. And we had a conversation that, microdosing behavioral health community throughout the year. And so what pieces can we bring in throughout the year, not just one throw spaghetti at the wall, here's a new initiative, right? Being thoughtful and planning for it moving forward. And then also a big focus is on our PD days. A lot of times the behavioral health and the nursing staff fall outside of some of the teacher professional development. So I take it on to make sure that our behavioral health staff and our nurses have valuable professional development opportunities. So we're using their time well.
I have a
Or our
question.
transition, yeah.
So I'm just thinking, you're saying how you want to align, you want to everything to kind of work together, which I get. How would that look in a real life situation?
Yeah.
What are you talking about?
Yeah, sure. Yeah. So one example of that is that there could be so many examples. So one example is our student intervention teams. This year, to move one step forward with aligning our student intervention teams across the district, we're all using the same tracking sheet. We're all using the same form documentation to ensure that kids aren't falling through the cracks, just as a simple example. So even that bringing those documentation pieces forward and ensuring that we're all doing it, it's helping us match the kids with the right interventions, right? Does that make sense?
Yeah, I'm thinking, okay, you're saying you use the same paperwork.
Yeah.
I'm thinking about you have kids, say, in one building, and do you go through the paper and check to make sure every kid is being attended to one way or the other? Or do you wait for things to happen in real life and then address that?
Yeah, so that's a good additional thing that we do is we look at data points throughout the year. So ensuring that each school is another alignment example. Each school is using data as early warning indicators to see, oh, this kid's bubbling up, this kid needs a little bit of help. So each of our schools now are thoughtfully using data to catch those kids and ensure that we're giving them the right prevention.
So what would the data be?
So we use the Swiss data, the office discipline referrals.
So does a name come up after, on a day, this person had 3 issues this week or something like that?
Yeah.
So their name.
Yep. So each of our schools have reports that are run that tells us these number of kids have 10 plus discipline referrals. Okay, those are the kids maybe that we need to talk about at our student intervention teams to figure out how we're going to support them. So there's different thresholds for each data point that help our teams determine who to problem solve around. I mean, we would love to spend time on all of the students, right? But from that tier 2 or tier 3 level, we're focusing on the kids that are bubbling up in our student intervention model.
Good, Chief.
While we're still on this page, we are losing the QuickBase data platform. Is that, I honestly don't know the cost. If we tried to keep it, is that a cost issue why we're not going to maintain it?
It is very expensive. I did look into that.
Okay.
but it's not totally intuitive either. It's not a platform I would want to keep, to be honest. I
Okay.
think it tracks a lot of good data points, but I think there's other ways we can do that internally without spending a lot of money to keep it.
Okay, perfect.
But that is constantly on my mind, is thinking about and looking at what are the products out there that are affordable, and that are tracking the data that's helpful to us,
Right.
without being cumbersome anymore. So,
Yeah, we want to make sure the data stays consistent too.
yeah.
Thank you.
All right, so moving on to the RB Behavioral Health Department, just to review kind of who is a part of that. We have 6 school counselors, 2 student assistance program counselors, 3 social workers, 2 school psychologists, 4 behavior coaches, and then I have some external people there. So a school liaison and a therapist through Seacoast Mental Health, and then we have our BCBAs and behavioral consultants contracted as well. So I zoned in specifically on behavioral health tier 2 and 3 services. So these are the services that will provide more targeted intervention for our students for the first part of the year. So with Seacoast Mental Health, so a reminder, we have a therapist at the high school and the middle school 1 day a week at both schools. Then we have a school liaison that we work with as well. So we have done 9 facilitated referrals to Seacoast Mental Health. That means that we have done a warm handoff to Seacoast Mental Health. The family has said, yes, we want help. We're going to help you get into Seacoast Mental Health. We have recommended mental health treatment for way more families than that. And there could be many reasons why a family does not want to pursue mental health treatment, and or maybe they don't want treatment through the mental health center. Maybe they want to go through a private therapist, right? So that's just a snippet. But because we track that data with Seacoast Mental Health, I wanted to make sure to at least share that piece. The therapist at the middle school working students that she's meeting on campus for the holidays. They probably have started. And then the school liaison has introduced a new intervention called Renew this year. So we have 4 referrals to her now for this Renew intervention, which is really about mapping out their future and setting. And she's doing that intervention at the high school.
Sam? Go ahead, Joe, and then I'll go.
You sure? If these parents decide to go to private practice or whatever, is there any way for us to track to make sure they're getting proper treatment?
I mean, we have to respect what they want to share with us, right? We are going to hopefully follow up with the family if we've made that recommendation. How's it going? But they don't have to share that with us. I mean, I would like to, moving forward, track all of the referrals we're making. So at least we are seeing how much we are recommending the treatment, but there's no way of us knowing if it was successful unless they share that with us.
So when it comes to, say, we, for instance, this person has to go out of district afterwards,
Yeah.
how are we supposed to prove that we did what we're supposed to do if we don't have any records to keep, to show that this is what we did? This was or was not followed.
Yeah, I mean, it's not to say we don't have record of that, right? Like, I'm sure if I went to my social workers and asked them, how many people have you referred, give me the names of those families, they could do that. It's just not in our system of tracking, if that makes sense. I didn't ask them to pull that data for me. But if they could share, I'm sure at a team meeting, yes, we have tried to refer them. We gave them these resources.
I'll set you.
Yeah, that's enough.
Yeah, I've got follow-up to similar line of thinking. One is I would like to have that track so that we have visibility, because I think it's important to understand, if I understand correctly, for the year, 9 referrals have gone through to Seacoast Health to get help.
Successful.
Probably a safe assumption there's more than 9 that we've referred.
Yes.
And I think it's important for us as a board to know and as a community to understand what the impact of, just so the I don't know if magnitude's the right word, of the situation we have as a district.
Yeah.
And that the community at large has. So if we can start tracking that information and conveying to us, I'd appreciate it. But the other part is going back to, now I've lost my train of thought, so. But anyways, I think it's important that we do have that information, like I said. So if we could track that, that'd be great to have. The other part would be, is it easily accessible for your social workers and such to accumulate that data, or how is that being gathered? Going back to Steve's question about data collection,
Yeah.
do we have what we need to be doing this? So,
Yeah, I think it would just be thoughtfully developing a tool where they could, so it's possible, for sure, yeah. Being cumbersome,
well, I understand it's possible. It's just a matter of going back to
Yeah.
the comment
Yeah.
from you, actually, the expense, right? What does it cost to do what we're doing?
Yeah.
Because I think it's important that we get the data.
Yeah.
But at what expense is it? And then,
yeah, and
No,
that's something I'm always weighing out, but I think for this particular data point, I think this is an easy thing to have.
thank you.
I have another question.
Go ahead.
When it comes to referrals that we can't really, as you said, ask them what they're doing. But if the services are attached to, we need to make sure this person has this, this, and this, and they're not getting that, and we just attacking on services because they're not getting the proper services on the other end, that could cost the district a lot of money for something.
Any service that's on an IEP or that has to be delivered within the 6.5 hour day. Anything is happening outside of school
Right.
would not be in an IEP or anything that's required.
Okay.
So anything we say has to be done right here.
I'm just wondering if there's services that, that we're giving out now that could possibly be, worked out in a situation where they're talking to, say, a therapist, or
Yep.
they're doing whatever, but they're not coming here and, maybe spending 2 hours, talking to somebody about things where they could be talking at other spots, which, it's great to have the services here, but they're also not in the classroom. They're not, interacting with their fellow classmates maybe and stuff like that, like they could be if they were getting the services outside of school.
Yeah, I mean, I agree, right? There's so many families and students that we wish that they would access mental health treatment. And there's so many barriers and reasons why families don't do that, and what's outside of our control. It's voluntary for people to seek, just like for adults, right? It's voluntary for us to seek out mental health support. So our social workers work really hard to help families understand the benefits of it and what they could get from it. But it's up to the families to follow through.
And we are offering more here.
Yeah.
So that we know that the student is getting it.
Yeah.
So a lot of times we will let the service provider come into the building, or it's telehealth, Zoom or whatever.
Right.
I mean, it's not all of them, but we do offer that now just so that, if the students in that desire, I hate, I'm gonna say is that, what's more important, social studies or their mental health right now? Probably their mental health, because they can't attain to the social studies.
And I think that's the important part is to meet we as a district need to understand that if somebody mentally is not in the place where they need to be, they're not going to be productive academically,
Mhm.
right? So you need to address the behavioral part so that they're productive and they're not being a distraction to other students either. If it's in that regard. I saw some hands I didn't, Tony?
So you don't think that some students might be reluctant to receive services in-house due to everything that we're always afraid of? You can't give a kid a peanut butter and jelly sandwich because people will think he's poor or whatever. So that associated stigma or whatever, that's the cause for a lot of things that we do around here is we don't want kids to feel singled out or labeled or anything like
Everybody
that.
has to agree. So the parents are in agreement. We're not saying you have to do this here right now. So the parents are like, yes, I realize my student needs help. I have to work all day. I'm just using that. I can't get them there. What can you do? Can they come in? Absolutely. So we make, it's all agreed upon. So there's no,
A series of doors they can.
absolutely. So if the
now-
parent goes, nope, I don't want my child to do that. We're not going to do that. They're going to take their student after school or dismiss them for an hour and a half, 2 hours. Whatever the time frame is, we're going to make that happen. So I think we need to be accommodating on all aspects of how those services are handled, delivered, and offered. So we don't close the door on one just because, one is open or vice versa.
Go ahead, Steve.
I was curious, you said we had 9 that were facilitated referrals. Do we have any ongoing communication with the Seacoast Mental Health folks for those that were successfully
Yeah.
sort of headed
that
on.
data. So that nine, we have facilitated a relationship with Seacoast based on the MOU that we have, where we can track which ones were successful for Seacoast specifically. We can't do that with all the private providers in the community. So for those that were not successful, that's not included in this nine. For those that didn't follow through, or maybe they showed up for the intake and they didn't go to their first therapy appointment, that's where we don't have that ongoing data, because unless we have a release, then we could talk with the therapist or Seacoast, but just the initial data of how many are successful referrals we have.
And that release is often encouraged too.
Yeah.
So the guidance counselor, SAP counselor,
Yeah.
or social worker can talk with that counselor so that the same message is being, is being delivered here as being delivered in those individualized sessions. So we try to work together as a team. It's not always perfect.
Right.
Sometimes, and we get that, but typically, if releases are had and conversations are happening, so that everyone's on the same page.
That's awesome. Yeah.
If they're seen by Seacoast in our buildings, then we need a release. That's what we say to families, because if they're being seen in our buildings, we're really working with that provider a lot. So we need to be able to communicate with that.
Yeah, I guess the reason I asked was I understand we obviously can't get that information from folks who are opting for private placements or whatever, that obviously that's up to them to decide to tell us or not. But I figured where this was something we were working on, that there would be more community.
I would say it's extremely rare that a parent's not willing to share information with us to make sure that their student's successful. It's rare.
That's awesome.
It happens, but it's rare.
Nice.
Go ahead, Tony.
So the 9 referrals, or however you were talking about, they report back the success stories that people have follow through. Now, is that part of the deal where those families have to disclose that information, or do they have any say in that, or is that just a relationship between you and Seacoast Mental Health?
So we would have a release. So anytime we're doing that
Any
facilitated.
kind of data transfer information has to be.
Yes. So anytime it's facilitated, it's that agreement that we're sharing that information. Yeah. So a family can go to Seacoast on their own and not even tell us or utilize us to help with that.
Have we, as a district, communicated to the masses, that being the families? And I don't know necessarily, I was gonna say the Tuesday, but it's Friday now. And I don't know if that's the correct vehicle. But what we do for behavioral health, because I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, there's still stigma out there about behavioral health versus if I break my bone, people readily talk about it, but if you're getting service for mental health, people are very reluctant often to talk about publicly. Have we done anything to educate our parents and families in regards to what's going on in the schools with behavioral health? And obviously not specific, but just in general. And then the services that we provide and the importance of those services. Do you understand what and I'm just curious as to, has that been communicated out to the families in any way or not? And do you think it would be productive?
Yes and no, right? For those that read those things. And I think we've tried to use opportunities to do that, or like microdosing some information. So having like a counselor's corner in a family newsletter, or providing a staff corner in the middle school newsletter. Like my providers have given some information, tidbits of information through the family newsletters. Last year when doing community reports, I was giving out some information. Some of the events we've done with the coalition, we provide that information. But it just depends on who reads or who shows up, right? It's that trying to figure that out. I think, of course, we could continue to think about how to do more of that. I think that's all the topic of conversation, right? Of how to engage our families on these type of things.
Yeah, when a kid's in crisis, we're reaching out, but sometimes, yeah.
I understand, but what my sense is
Yeah,
that, and I don't even need necessarily it's just for everybody, whether your student has behavioral health issues or maybe does or not, but just to get more information out there, because I think we're, as a populace, not as informed about mental health as we are about what I'll call physical health. So anything we can do, and I'm not suggesting certainly to do a night of conversation, because we know how successful those are. unfortunately, we'll get maybe one or two people. So it's not productive in my mind to do that. But I'm just trying to think of, just so that we get more information out for the families, and hopefully you'll have more successes than not, but
No, and I love that, you know, and that's definitely open to that conversation and ideas for sure. I'll keep moving on this slide. So our student assistance program counselors, we have one at the high school, one at the middle school. Just a reminder a little bit about their role. They work with students who have substance use challenges or at risk of substance use. So maybe they have peers or family members that are engaging in substance use or have substance use disorders. So their role is really to provide prevention kind of counseling, short-term counseling. So it's not substance use treatment. I want to be clear about that. We're not providing substance use treatment in our district on campus. So they have received 84 referrals, 84 students so far this year. So that could come through administration, that could come from teachers, it could come from caregivers, it could come from themselves saying that they want to utilize the student assistance program counselor. Right now, currently, or right before the break, currently, they were providing active counseling for 30 students. So those other, what's the math there, 54 students have graduated from working with them, meaning that they've either been referred to a higher level of treatment, like substance use treatment or mental health treatment, or possibly they've just been referred back to the school counselor or the social worker. So they're no longer working with that cohort of kids. However, those kids, they build a relationship with them, so they're still accessing them. And they're also providing prevention education to 7th and 9th grades as well. So they're out there, they're interfacing with all the kids, and they try to, that's part of their roles, but they're providing those targeted tier 2 and 3 services for 30 students right now. That's tracking higher so far than last year, but I'm kind of keeping my eyes on that data. And then our social workers, we have 3, one at each school. They're currently providing targeted intervention for 64 students. So they also, in addition to those 64 students, they have other families that they're providing basic needs, resources, you know, facilitated referrals to Seacoast Mental Health, other ways that they're connecting families on top of those 64 students. But we're those 64 doing individual or group or wraparound team meetings, supporting the whole teams coming together, because these are kids that have more complex needs or barriers to their engagement and learning. And 18 IEPs have social work services attached to them specifically. Number of SEL groups so far this year is 20, and that's not including our RAM room at the middle school. The RAM room teacher is providing some SEL groups as well, which is really exciting. But this is like coping skills group, emotion regulation groups, social skills groups. I like that number so far, and I know our counselors have more plans to do more groups across the district, so I'm happy to see that.
Sam, in the future, if you could, when you report out, continue to report out not only the data that we just got, but for example, back in October, the data that we received then. For example, back in October, there were 30, I think we handled 38 for SAP, and social workers, there were 75 and 20 that were in IEPs. So I think it's just important that we see that, just so that, granted, there could be some still in there that are part of that were before, and it could be, like you said, some have moved on, but I think it's just important that we, as we have data points, to keep track so that we can see any trends that are going.
So would you want to see like by quarter? Is that what you mean? Or-
Well,
I have that, but yeah.
well, what I mean is the last time you were here in October, you reported these numbers. I would just ask that you would put them on the next one. And I know you're going to be back in the spring, so just layer them, so to speak. And I think one of the things you mentioned, which was, unfortunately, we've got higher numbers, I think, for social worker, more people. And it's a good thing, but yet, and it's a bad thing, right? And it's a double-edged sword, but I think it's important that we're finding more people or more students that need the help, and we're giving them the help, right? So that's a good thing. The sad part is that more students need that, but that's why we're here and make the student productive, so.
All right, top 5 reasons for referral. I'll quickly touch on this because I know we've looked at this before. But elementary and middle, the emotion regulation, self-management is 2 of the biggest ones. And that tracks also with some of the crisis events that I've been looking at, some of that data. Extreme emotional dysregulation, number 1 crisis event challenge. And then the middle school and high school social friendships concerns make sense, right? They're forming their identities, figuring out how they fit in with their peers. And then I'll highlight the internalizing behaviors at the high school. Self-harm is the largest crisis incident event at the high school. So that also tracks, the kids are learning how to manage their emotions externally, but they're starting to internalize these patterns and things that they're going through. Some updates.
Before you go on that slide, is there anything that surprised you? Or is it that's just the way it is?
Yeah, it's kind of just the reality. I
Okay.
mean, yes, nothing that was a surprise.
Thank you.
So just some updates and some happenings within behavioral health. A lot of our conversations are refining whose role is what within all these behavioral health meetings that we have in the district. We have a lot of focus on behavioral health, which is awesome, but we want to make sure we're efficient with time for our staff, right? But also ensuring that the right people are at the table to have the problem solving conversations around behavioral health. So there's a lot of conversation about who should be in what team meeting. The second bullet, I really want to highlight the coordination and implementation of SEL groups and targeted individual counseling sessions. I mean, you saw on the last slide a lot of the interventions that we're doing. And there is, to your point, John, there's a lot of need, right? So our staff are working really, really hard to keep up with the referrals and keep up with the need for our students and be proactive, right? Provide these targeted interventions, figure out where it fits within their schedules, within the kids' schedules, logistically getting consent for families for them to be in these services. There's a lot of logistical pieces. And then layering on top of that, all the crises. When I started to look at our crisis event data so far this year, and I wasn't prepared to bring it up today, we are trending to double the amount of crises that we're seeing in this district this year. With that being said, I'm noticing that the amount of time that it's taking to de-escalate our kids is less. So that means that all the training that we're doing for our staff around crisis de-escalation, having our behavior coaches, having more attention on our crisis response protocols, and our level systems in our schools is working, right? Our kids are in crisis for sure, really struggling, but we have more tools and strategies now to support them at the right level and get them de-escalated. And I just want to give a shout out to our crisis response teams, our SEL programs. They are working their tails off to help these kids and meet them where they're at. And we're also utilizing, again, preliminary data, utilizing mobile crisis and police less. So our internal resources, again, have increased. We're able to support our kids through those crises. But again, more crises, more debriefing that our behavioral health team needs to do, right? Processing, making sure those kids are ready to go back to class. So that balance of proactive interventions and crisis response is tricky to balance. Behavioral health within special ed, we have 34 IEPs that have behavioral health stuff, social workers, school counselors, psychologists. We're trying to analyze those IEPs right now and figure out, why school counselor versus a social worker versus a psychologist. We're trying to be more thoughtful about how we're referring to those services. Again, being mindful of people's areas of expertise. A couple of big coordination events. We had Red Ribbon Week. Our staff counselors and our social workers worked really hard at coordinating all those activities. And then holiday supports a lot of families in need in this community. And we have a lot of community resources that offer to help those families. So our social workers worked really hard to coordinate, and our nurses to coordinate helping those families through the holidays. So that was really neat to see that. I wasn't here for holidays last year, so the amount of support from this community is really, really important for our families. The social workers are also managing the McKinney-Vento cases, which are families that are considered homeless according to the definition. So right now we have 15 cases that are considered homeless. So social workers are providing resources and ensuring that they have what they need to get to school and engage in education, considering their homelessness status. We provided data analyst training for all our behavioral health department around SWIS, so that way they could go in and understand the data in the system and utilize it in their student teams and their SIT teams, which they found to be really helpful. Again, trying to increase our database decision making here in the district. And then I just wanted to also put on there, the department utilizes one another so well and effectively, just having case consult, topic consult. They're dealing with complex situations every day between crises or family situations. And so having time to consult with one another has been really important and valuable for that team. And so our department meetings sometimes spend time on that. Let's talk about a topic and break it down and make sure we're all handling this thing the same way and we're following best practices. Moving now to the next department, if there's any other questions around behavioral health before I move.
And
Go ahead, Steve.
one, sorry. You said we seem to be trending towards a double in the behavior issues. This is sort of maybe an abstract question, but I know we're changing the way we track these things. Do you feel like that's a true behavior issue doubling, or are we now maybe tracking it better so we're seeing? Do you know what I mean? Is it really a reflection of more behavior, or is it a reflection of we're now counting more accurately?
Yeah, so there's two different pieces here. So we have Swiss that tracks discipline referrals. So that's specifically kids that are breaking rules, getting into behavioral trouble. Then we have crisis intervention tracking that we're doing separately. So crisis intervention is more when a kid is suicidal, extremely emotionally dysregulated, where our crisis team has to respond, de-escalate. So that's different than Swiss. So we're not tracking that data any differently. So I would say that is a true reflection. I would even go to the place of maybe that's an underrepresentation, because now crisis, we're better at managing crisis. So we might not think that something should be tracked because we're responding to it so well, right? So it might even be an underrepresentation based on past. I think it just speaks to the mental health needs of our students, right? That there's just, our students are more emotionally dysregulated and dealing with more right now for whatever reason. You know, there's so many hypotheses out there, COVID being one of them. But there's just more need.
Thank you.
Okay, so the nursing department, I don't think this was on your slides. I added this because I did it for the other one. So for just to understand who the nursing department is, we have a full-time nurse and LPN at the elementary school. We have a full-time nurse and a part-time nurse at the middle school, and we have a full-time nurse at the high school. I just want to highlight that because I'll touch on kind of coverage pieces in a moment.
Do we have the LPN?
So we do not have a LPN filled. However, Terry worked to get a part-time RN at the middle school.
Yeah. Is that what you're asking?
Is that what you're asking? Yeah.
What are you asking?
I asked, do we have an LPN? Because I see it up there and I was confused.
Middle school we do. At the middle school, we have a vacant LPN position.
Yeah.
Terry worked to get a part-time RN in that.
I know we have 3 nurses, 1 at each school. And I knew we had an opening at the middle school for LPN. I didn't realize we also have a full-time LPN at the elementary school in addition.
For years.
I'm not,
No, I just,
takes me sometimes a while to catch up.
okay, I just didn't want you to think I was surprising you. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
And so the data in the top right of this shows the visits so far this year. You can see this is typical, the middle school trends at a higher rate. They right now, if I did my math right, at that point in time, we're around 68 visits a day. The elementary was at 40 and the high school was at 30 visits a day. And this is including, you know, medications, treatments, headache, flu, all the things that kids come in for, including, it also includes when they have to pick up the phone and call a family. So the amount of time that the nurses are kind of interacting and managing care. So you can see that the high rates, the volume, and they feel that they're very fast-paced nursing environments. And that second bullet on the bottom there, I just wanted to highlight, because we could not find a full-time LPN at the middle school, and we had that part-time RN, which has been super helpful. It's still not filling all of the gaps. So our middle school nurse is working her tail off to try to meet this volume of kiddos coming in and providing quality care. We're just not getting applicants in our nursing positions, even in our sub pool. So we have a couple of subs that are awesome and they're such valuable assets to our district, but we're short-staffed in the nursing department. That's the truth of it. And so thinking about how do we retain and recruit nurses is really important.
Tony?
Is that a pay issue or?
It's a shortage issue, which creates a pay issue, which we as Raymond, I don't know if we'll ever catch up on the pay
I mean,
issue. Because,
historically, since I've been on the board, we've struggled to get nurses in here and
Oh,
it's
yeah.
been a
Statewide in schools, but yeah, that just it is.
it's a nursing shortage regardless of the industry. I don't know how much it is so much now, but I know there's an issue with,
My wife was willing to come in, but now we got that nepotism policy. She just said no.
Yeah. Policy committee.
Yeah.
My wife could do it though. Uh-huh.
I will say I had a situation where I knew of someone who was a nurse here who left to go to another school, and it was a straight pay issue. We just don't pay. And we have that issue across the board with a
Yeah,
lot
it's
of our
not unique.
positions. Yeah, but I would, from just my anecdotal one-off experience, it's definitely we lost a couple nurses because we just couldn't pay commensurate with what other schools are paying.
but I think the overriding thing is, what's driving it is, there's a shortage. So the nurses can be a little more demanding as to what they would like to receive. But anyways,
I don't know if we've ever been fully staffed in the nursing department since I've been on
Last year
board.
we were.
That was the first time since I've been on the board.
and again, if we, on the visits, if we could do the same thing I asked for on the previous slide, which is show what we've got. And the other thing I think it's important, if we could do like maybe per capita numbers, because as we know, the middle school is the most populous.
Yeah.
And the other two schools comparable, but different populations require different visits. The boo-boos are a little more prevalent probably at the elementary than here at the high school. Although do we have the PKs here, but not that. So.
Okay, so even within that, even within the shortage, I will say this nursing department is like so committed to continuing the health and wellness initiatives that they're passionate about. So coordinating the district flu shot clinic, the Lions Club visioning screenings, that they're proud of those things. They enjoy that and they want to keep moving those things forward, which is really neat. The high school nurse is training CPR and first aid. She continues to do that, which is really exciting. She also got a certification in the health and wrestling program. So she's committed to kind of advancing the athletic department, which is really neat. And then they also they're great with our behavioral health teams as well and trying to support our procedures. And my words are disappearing as my slides go on. They're trying to support our behavioral health team with their procedures as well. So they're really committed to keeping moving things forward, even though they do feel the volume of visits in their offices.
Question, Tony?
A nurse's wage pool, or is that supported?
Which one? What did
Yeah,
you
which
ask?
is not though.
If,
The LPN is not.
Wage pool, okay, yeah.
The LPN is not though.
And the other, as a reminder, in this budget we're currently in, we added $5,000 to each of the positions. Now, I'm not saying that was sufficient, but
And an added percentage.
as part of the wage pool increase, right? But we've made efforts, but we've got to live within the means of the district, so.
I just didn't know how limited we were as
Yep.
far as that goes.
Yeah.
All right. That's fun stuff. Well, it's all fun in my eyes, but I enjoy sharing success stories with you all because even with the increasing crises, like there's so much good work happening and it's so neat to see staff excited about the good work happening. I was just at the elementary school this afternoon and the assistant principal was like, I got to make all these phone calls for successful days for our students, like to their families. And that's the good stuff, right? That's what keeps us going. So some success stories that also kind of share more about how kids work through the MTSS model and the student intervention teams I think are important. So this year we had a fourth grader. He had a hard time transitioning to the middle school. He showed challenging behaviors such as eloping classroom in the building. He was barricading in the bathroom. He had intense outbursts, so screaming, yelling, and crying. Staff described him as a really bright and brilliant kid, but he really struggled finding his way getting into middle school. So the teacher identified concerns right away, had communication with the family, and tried their best within the class to manage the challenges, but they needed more support. So they completed what we call a request for assistance form that goes to the student intervention team. The teacher joins the team. That team includes the teacher, the administrators, the counselor, social worker, the academic interventionist, the lead behavior coach, and the psychologist. So they review data and information about the student and determine that he would benefit from intervention through the RAM room. So he's connected to the SEL program. The RAM team got consent from the family. The behavior coach did classroom observations and completed a behavior plan, which was rolled out to all of his teachers in Indeed. They put proactive check-ins in his schedule into the RAM room. He was able to access the RAM room when he was dysregulated rather than running to the bathroom and barricading himself. And he was learning pro-social strategies to utilize to work through his emotions. Now, and again, we're 3 months into school, he's accessing their RAM room a lot less, he's in the classroom a lot more, and his challenging behaviors have decreased in intensity. Because now he's building positive connections with all of his adults who can just understand and connect with him more. He's able to express himself easier and identify his skills easier when he does get triggered. So the plan is not perfect, right? But it's a lot better for the team. The RAM team monitors his plan weekly. He also remains on the SIT monitoring list. They'll check in on his progress in 6 to 8 weeks. So there's a couple levels of progress monitoring for him. That was one example. It's doing awesome. And then we have a high school student who came to our school in the 2021 school year. When he was here right away, there were substance abuse concerns, which led to discipline events. So he was automatically referred to our SAP counselor for individual counseling based on the substance use. He was also struggling academically, failures, minimally passing. There were many broken attachments in his family situation, a lot of home life stressors. He struggled with consistent attendance due to these stressors. Due to this, the social worker was connected to the family, so that the social worker gave the family a lot of community resources, built that home to school connection, and connected them also to outside mental health treatment. He also was referred to the SEL program, REAP, here in the high school for access to the room and to reset and have academic support. And through that program, he accessed adventure-based therapy 2 times a month. Now, he's attending school every day with no substance use concerns or discipline issues at school. He no longer works with the SAP counselor. The family is communicative when they need support accessing resources with a social worker. He has one trusted adults in the building beyond just the social worker now too, so he actually got support less. He's passing all of his classes. He has A's and B's now, and he's on track to graduate. He's still enrolled in the REAP program, but does not access the space that he's able to independently engage with his teachers and education environment. Pretty cool. And that took a few years,
That's awesome.
a lot of work there. So kudos to the teams. That's all I have.
I have one more question.
Go ahead, Tony.
You had mentioned behavior plan for previous success story. I was wondering, so how much weight does that carry? Like, what is, if the idea is to refer to that and they don't, like, would that be the protocol, go through that, or?
They're supposed to follow it. If they don't, there's meetings, emphasis, this is the expectations.
So that is the playbook, this specifically, not vary from it or your own.
Yeah, yes. I'm not gonna sit there.
Well, I understand real world issues happen.
Yeah.
You can't always go by the book,
Yeah.
but the idea is to, as often as possible, refer to the book.
Absolutely.
Consistency is so important.
And it's important too, that behavior plan was not gonna work forever. And every 3 to 6 months, it probably needs to get adjusted again because the carrot gets old or the carrot's no longer effective.
As long as they're following the plans, it's.
Yep, so you need to find something else. And eventually you can start to wean the carrot, the goal. You don't need that carrot anymore.
Any other questions, comments for Sam?
I would just say that we've talked a lot in the last year about your drive to build the supports here and to bring more students back. And I think this is just a perfect example of that working so I want to congratulate you and your staff for putting all this in place. And it seems like the plan is at least in motion, and maybe we're just at the beginning of the pathway here, but it sounds like we're on the right path. So I just want to say thank you.
They're all, I mean, just in a year and a half growth, the growth I've seen in that team alone too has been amazing, from Sam to the principals, to the SAP counselors, to the counselors, to all of them, behavior coaches. So we're making strides. And I'm going to say this too. I can't say enough about Jenna. Jenna, did I say it right?
What are you talking about?
The BCBA.
Jana.
Jana, I can never pronounce her. Yeah, anyways, she's been phenomenal. She's been a home run. And her dedication to the district and the students is unmatched too with everybody else. So kudos to her too.
I feel like you would have to have that and doing that.
Oh, God, yeah.
It'd be
Yep.
required,
And she is the BCBA?
That is contracted. Thank you. We're trying.
No, I'm trying to keep track of.
Yep, she's gone first service, but she He's extremely dedicated and it's,
Because I know in the past,
I'm gonna be quiet now because I'm gonna get in trouble, but she,
well, no, I understand. But the reason I ask is because part of the issue is when we have people that are on the outside,
Mhm.
they're not always vested as much as we'd like them to be, and or, for lack of a better way of saying it, revolving door is to the server or the provider, right? So, all right, thank you.
yeah, she's been awesome.
Thanks, Sam.
Thank you.
Thanks, Sam.
Next up, deliberative session speaking schedule. We're about just over a month away from our deliberative, February 10th, correct?
Yep, I think so. I gotta look now.
We've got, three, articles on the warrant this year. Well, there'll be four. The first one, which is the people running for office, but the ones that we need to speak to. And tonight we're looking to find out who would like to speak to these three articles. They got the operating budget, capital reserve funds, and then the capital reserve fund from the year-end fund balance for the disabilities one and the maintenance. Any volunteers for any of the three?
Trying to think, did I get out of it last
I
year?
think you did.
Cause I had the long one the year before.
Yes.
I have to read like 12 of them. That could be- I don't care, just not the long one. I'll take the short one. Whichever the
Which
short-
is,
Whichever one the shortest one is, I don't know off the top of my head, 3, 4, whatever.
Well,
Not the operating
we
budget.
can elongate things for you if you want.
Put them together.
We'll see after.
Make it all
tomorrow.
one long sentence.
So when I started last year, this was around the time,
Mhm.
and so I don't recall exactly what is the,
What we're
so just
doing,
reading it out.
no, well, what we do is we read specifically the article itself,
Right.
and then we explain to the voters what it is we're asking for. For example, the operating budget, we're gonna say well, right now it's not our budget. But
Right.
hypothetically, if it was our budget, we would say it's 30 million, whatever. And these are the things that have increased, things that have decreased, anything that we want to highlight that are in the budget. And then the capital reserve funds would be basically what is we're asking the voters to approve. And then we also usually elaborate that, like we talked about last night with the budget committee. You know, in theory, if we were asking for what we're supposed to be asking for, we'd be asking for $4.5 million.
Right.
But we're asking for about $500,000.
Can you make that like 3.2, 3.3 as opposed to 5? Cut it back.
I'm lost, but that's all right. Anyways, so the idea is we'll have, I guess is it called, whatever it is, I would call it PowerPoint, but is it slides?
Same thing.
In
Same thing,
Google,
Presentation,
well, yeah.
slide presentation, depending on which operating.
Anyways, so
Yeah.
that's what we're.
So I have a question mark on my availability for the day. I may not actually be in town.
Okay, so then I would suggest you
So,
don't
If
volunteer.
I should, I should find out.
I'm pretty quick.
Well, the reason I said it that way is, if I find out that I am here, I would be okay. I would be up to doing one if someone wants to.
Back out at the last minute and
Right.
drop it in your lap. That sounds like fun.
We need a stunt double.
All right.
Or I could be a backup for somebody. I just don't know if I'll be here that day. I was actually trying to find out from my wife. I'm like, are we here
I'm
that
gonna
week?
phone in, I'll hold my phone to the.
Yeah.
Any volunteers? I'll do the capital reserve funds.
I'll do the operating budget, doesn't matter.
And that depends on what we do as a board, ultimately. Because as we know, the budget committee recommended a budget that is less than what we had proposed. So it's their budget at this point, just as it is every year. But if it's the same as ours, then we always have presented the budget. Because it's our budget too.
So
We just have to, what's that?
if they approve what they want, do they present it? Or do we have to
No.
present? the
In
amended?
theory, if we don't, and my plan is to, on the 17th, we'll take a vote as to whether we recommend or not recommend their budget.
Did they actually vote on that last night? I can't remember.
Yes, 6
I know they
to 0.
voted on the 300 less.
What's on Thursday?
But
The
that was the
operating-
budget.
The other,
That was the budget though.
that was the operating budget vote. that
The
didn't
other,
get to
the
warrant
capital reserve funds and the transfer.
Yeah.
But getting back, in theory, it is their budget. And if we don't approve it, we could ask them, they need to present their budget. Because it's not ours.
But we still have to do, like,
Yeah, but why?
still have to like,
Because it's not our budget.
Well,
we
they,
still have to live with that budget though, as a school board. We have to.
If it gets approved, yes.
so,
But again, I'm not saying whether
I
we do or
guess-
not, but it is in
Yeah.
theory.
So if the
theirs
voters
now.
approve it,
I
then
think
we.
the budget committee would have a hard time spending 30 million.
Interesting.
Well, no, it's not that they're spending it, it's that they would need to present. But again,
so
since I've been on the board, in the number of years, it never came to that because ultimately the board either approved or recommended their budget or amended it at the deliberative. So anyways,
So, just as a point of process, because I don't know exactly how this works. So, last night's meeting, the vote was not to accept what we presented, but to remove the 317, whatever it was. So my understanding is now that budget with the reduction comes back to us. We have to decide where to take that 317 from. It doesn't have to come from what they said, but we have to remove 317,000, or the suggestion from them is we remove that money from our budget line. So we can go back with a higher number, but likely it wouldn't get approved. So,
That would rule.
no.
right,
What happens is there are a number of things. One is Marjorie has to do the MS 27, and that is based off of the budget committee's number, which is the less than what we asked for as a board. So Marjorie will then, because in this case, they were very specific in where they said they wanted that money to come from. It was one line, so Marjorie knows where to take it from. So they will then,
that's my, well, before you go on, because my question is, from what I understand from reading the RSA, they have the right to ask us to reduce the amount, but they don't have the right to tell us where to take it from. They can ask us to take it from a specific line,
well.
but if
again,
we choose to take it from somewhere else, we can.
Right, but I don't want to jump to the end, but there's a process to get there. And the process is that the MS 27 gets submitted, then it gets presented at the deliberative session. If it doesn't get changed at the deliberative session, then whatever number gets voted in, whether it's the budget committee's number or the default, ultimately the board on July 1st gets to make decisions prior to that usually on what we will be spending that money on. For example, if the voters decide that that budget is going to be the 317 number less, $317,880 less, then we as a board have to figure out, are we going to take their recommendation, the budget committee, which was some, I don't think it was an overwhelming majority that said this. Some of them wanted to take it out of capital reserve fund. And if we as a board decide in after March that we really want to do this project, then we need to come up with money either through capital reserve or in the operating budget to support that. If we say, yep, we agree with the budget committee, we're not going to fund that this year, then we can live with the budget that it exists today. So there's a lot of moving targets and there's no hard and fast answer to your question, other than on July 1st, it's our budget and we ultimately decide where those monies go.
But for this meeting, the number that we need to present to the deliberative session, we have to so do we have to decide or do we have to vote to accept their 317 removal?
Yes,
And we should do that before the deliberative.
right. And as I said previously, we're going to do that on the 17th. So we make a motion to recommend their budget and whatever the vote is, it will go on the ballot or the deliberative
And
that
that's
will
what
say
will be read out.
read out, correct. And we don't in that, at this point, we don't say where the money's coming from.
Okay.
At least in the past, that's how we done. Go ahead, Joe.
This is just my belief, but with the specificity that where they took it out, I think when Marjorie does the numbers, they're gonna take out the boiler, but they're also going to lose the savings that we had off the oil. So I think it's gonna be probably closer to 400,000 than the 317 or whatever the number was. Because,
No, they voted on a bottom line.
yeah, but that bottom line was with savings, those.
No, because what they did is they took, without having the numbers, our $31 million budget. And they subtracted $317,880, and that was the motion. Bottom line is that's the number that we're gonna deal with.
But the motion was to take out the boilers.
No, they
no,
gave a very specific number.
Yeah,
They
they,
give a specific number.
So the vote we took was to reduce it by 317,000, not to take out the boiler. There was no
That's a
in the
cost of
motion,
boilers?
it's the cost of the boilers, but the motion never said the words, take out the boilers. The motion was to reduce the budget by 317,000.
yeah, and the other part of it is that even if they did say the boilers, it's more than just the boilers, as we know.
Oh, yeah, it's definitely more than that.
So that's the part. But the bottom line is the number is that we're gonna deal with is $317,880 less than what we had proposed.
Yeah.
So,
But we still need to know the numbers of what everything else is gonna increase. Cause if we just,
for the MS-27, it's not a line by line thing. It's more generic, or they take it, I don't know how many lines there are on that 27, but
By function? By function code, not object code? So it's by 1100, 1200, 1300,
Yeah.
1400, it's by those, if my memory served me correctly. But because they said 317, so basically I increased construction services by $317,000. And then I decreased those electricity lines.
Mhm.
Since they're saying it's just a 317, I just have to go to those construction lines and decrease that 317 because they said the figure.
So we don't have to.
I see what you're
Yeah,
saying, and
That's
that's
an offset that we don't have to worry about yet. If we can still figure out how to do it without that money. Savings.
it's,
I think we could, I'm gonna be.
conversations down the
To
road.
find $50,000.
Right.
Again, I would love to be fully staffed. We probably won't be. I mean, and that would be a para or something like that. I'm just,
To figure that out.
I know,
Again,
Right.
hypothetically speaking.
okay. This all started, but Joe, you're gonna do the, okay. I just want to make sure, because again, it depends on how we vote, whether we're recommending or not recommending. But anyways, and or are we going to ask to, and the board has the ability to do that, is to whether we're going to amend it or not. I'll be doing the capital reserve. We need somebody to do the capital reserve transfer from year-end fund balance.
The popular one, I'll take it, sure.
Okay, thank you, Tony. All right. Next up, deliberative session, public information timeline, and this is what we do normally prior to the deliberative, is we try to get information out to the voters. And the means that we do that are listed on our backup, which includes coffee hour at the 3 schools. Usually we do the superintendent one also. I know he's got that scheduled. So we're looking for the first things are, I think the immediate ones are the principal coffee hours. The high school is on January 22nd at 9. The middle school is on the 30th at 9. That's a Wednesday. And then the LRES is Friday the 9th. Is it possible to do it the 2nd? And the reason I ask that is the 9th is the day before. And usually, for lack of a better way of saying it, we're a little busy that day. And I say we as in the Marjorie and yourself, Terry as superintendent, usually trying to get stuff ready for that day, the next day.
What day are you saying, John?
Elementary school is scheduled to do the 9th. And usually what happens is the board is there, somebody from the board is there, and usually Terry and or Marjorie are there to support the board member. And all I'm thinking about is that the day before, usually, I don't want to speak for you guys, but usually you guys are knee deep in trying to make sure everything's ready for the next day. If that's not the case, then
no, typically Jennifer's just hogging the copier.
Yeah.
Just kidding.
No, he tells me, go away, and I'm all right, Jennifer.
well, I just want to make sure that we're all,
There's a go through the
Yeah.
it's only that,
non-public.
I appreciate the thought, John, but I mean, if we need to be ready earlier, we can.
And the other part of it is I don't know how productive it will be the day before,
Okay.
just so that people get the word out that but anyways, all right. So are there any volunteers to do any of these three? It's all in the morning at 9. I can do any,
I'll do
I'm
the
available.
elementary school.
What's that?
I'll do the elementary school.
I was just gonna, that's probably the only one I could do.
Right.
Maybe the Monday at the high school.
I can do the high school on the 22nd. And the middle school, if anybody, if not, I can
do the middle school.
I will, put together slides for myself on the 22nd.
I remember this now.
So if other people want to use that, I will make it available. If they don't, that's fine too.
I will also.
I usually steal from whatever you guys present. I just wean it down.
I do remember this now. Okay.
So yeah, you can put me down for the 24th also. I'll be at that.
The 24th?
Yeah.
Oh, the Wednesday,
That's the
A
preference.
little more informal. It's not a slide presentation, but
do you do,
just questions, Q&A.
oh, I thought you were gonna do like an oral presentation or
Yeah.
get up and speak.
Talk pretty well.
You get chalkboards. and-
Yeah, I think.
That's right. That's right. All right. So just to reiterate, I just want to make sure I've got it right. I'm going to do the high school. Who's doing the middle school?
I am.
Joe. Okay. Thank you. And then Tony is doing the elementary school, and any number of us potentially could be at the Long Branch on
Yeah, just-
Forum, Jen.
the 24th. Go ahead, Marjorie.
Just because.
Yep.
Because Steve's new. I think just because you guys are slotted to do the speaking and the presentation doesn't mean that other board members can't show up. Correct?
Just not.
Because you had said you
as
wanted
a
to do the
force.
elementary school too, so it's just kind of like you
Yeah,
can still.
I can't do the Tuesday. I work in the office, so I could have done the Monday or the Friday, but yeah, I'll probably end up at least one of those, but thank you.
You're welcome.
All right. Then we have,
So is that gonna be the 2nd or the 9th? Do we know yet? Does it
Which?
matter? The 9th?
Tonight, right? Yeah.
I think what John was saying is, why can't we do it the 2nd?
I don't know what Jessica's doing on the 2nd.
if we could check with Jessica's availability, and if it can work for her, I don't want it to not work for her.
I think the day before might work. You stay fresh in people's mind
No.
and it's not like you don't have a week to
It's fine. I
against it.
just look at it and I think if we give people more time to be aware about it. But anyways, next up is there's a public forum we've got scheduled. I guess we have scheduled a public forum for Tuesday, the 6th. And we'll need somebody to present that night. I think I'm available that night if,
The Tuesday, February 6th.
Yep.
I can be there, but I'm not
no, that's fine.
presenting.
That's fine.
material.
I could be there. If you don't want to, I can.
Right, so I will put myself in on the 6th for 7
I
PM.
didn't for to be there, but.
Yeah, that's fine. Moral support. I need all of it. Next up, we've got the Raymond Voter Information Project. Terry and Marjorie will do that. School District Community Newsletter, obviously Terry, Marjorie, and they bring in the big gun. Jennifer will help out with that. Social media is Jennifer. And then RCTV is just doing that. Jennifer's got that. And then, after, the deliberative session, traditionally, we do, PowerPoints for RCTV to run. And, so do we want to do that? Do we want to try to line up those tonight or do we want to wait until the,
Would that be like a PowerPoint or would that be a video? Make of it.
you'll do both. What you do is usually you'll be speaking to the camera and RCTV. Actually, do we do it now? Jen, have we been doing it?
So we've been doing it. I mean, obviously you can
Do either
do
or.
anything you want to do. But lately I think recently it's been an audio recording
Okay, that's right.
of whichever board member overlaid over the PowerPoint presentation, like a movie style, and then it shows on RCTV.
And it just,
Just the
Usually-
narrator essentially.
usually it's like a half hour per video and
Half hour. Yeah.
This is just like viral marketing, put that down.
it's usually a short brief. I don't remember how long it takes, but it's
Are
not
you
that long.
talking about just the warrant articles?
Just
or
the three articles that we have
three
here.
articles, just to
So,
explain?
And we've had anything from one person doing them all to each one having one. So it's a matter of what we'd like to do.
Well, what, because I can make videos, but what do you want in it? You just want just the information? Or do you want somebody talking about the information?
It's somebody talking about the information using the PowerPoint slides that we have as a basis for that presentation. And so that,
Sorry, go ahead.
go ahead.
Our voice is usually overlaid on the PowerPoint, so, because when you're looking on the TV, you wouldn't be able to see it if it was behind you or something like that.
Right.
So it's overlaid, so you can.
So you're not on screen, it's just the PowerPoint
Correct.
slides going
So I don't-
by while someone talks about it.
I don't have to worry about my hair that day.
Because if, I mean.
I never have
help
to.
Somebody make a video or,
Well, what happens
I'm
again,
happy to
I think
do one.
Jennifer was reminding me that last year, I think we had to record it, just audio. And then Jen worked her magic to align that with the slides.
oh, okay.
And our producer slash clerk slash administrative assistant, you know, whatever, exactly, magical, made it work. And it just gives more information out for the voters. And it's not, we're not asking anybody to do anything. We're just providing just the facts. So,
I'll be happy to do one or all or whatever if you want. I don't mind reading.
Got to juggle at the same time, so.
I was thinking.
Got it.
Dance.
Well, the thing is, if you do that, I can give it more attention.
I like that thought process. Yeah, it's okay.
Yeah, you know.
I got bad knees. There's no river dance.
All right. So we have the, assuming nothing gets modified or amended, we have the operating budget, again, our capital reserve fund, and then capital reserve fund transfer. Steve, would you like, you said you wanted to do one. Do you have a preference as to what you do?
I'm happy to do all if no one else wants to do it, but
I'm just trying to
I'll volunteer. at least
divide
for
and
one.
conquer.
Yeah, I'll volunteer for at least.
If
one.
you're interested.
I'll be the backup, so.
I mean,
Do you record it at home or come here to do it? How did they do it
I
last?
think I did it at home last year. I think we all did it wherever we
That's easy,
felt
yeah.
comfortable.
I mean, you got a TV studio in your pocket, for Christ's sakes.
Yeah,
You make any video, you can make a full-length movie of your phone now.
yeah. Yeah, that's easy. I don't mind.
All right. Which one do you want to do, Dave, so we can move this on?
I'll do the operating budget.
Okay. Anybody else want to do one?
I'll do the first one article.
The first one?
Yeah.
He just said he was going to do the operating,
Sign up.
the capital reserve fund. And I'll do the transfer one then, so that we know what I started writing this stuff down. I should probably write this down. So I know what I'm volunteering for. All right, so we got those three done. All right, anything else on that? Very good, thank you. Next up is new revised policy first reading. First one is policy FAA, annual facility plan and unused district property. This is new. And this is the result of legislative changes in the last number of years. Without getting into too much of the detail, talking about what we have to have an inventory of unused property. And if we have unused property, we have to make it available to charter schools in the state.
Like an expansion draft, we have to make it available, or if we opt to sell it or we want to get rid of it, it has to be available to them first. Because if we just have available space and we have to make it available, that's crazy.
That's
Basically-
basically if you don't use it within 2 years, you kind of.
Yeah,
Which interestingly enough, though, they don't say how much you have to offer it to them for.
Well, it does go into that. I think it's a fair market. And again, you're right, that depending on the price tag, you can make it attractive or not so attractive. But in there,
Does that
in
mean building
Yes,
It's like part of your building isn't being used.
I don't know that it's necessarily part of a building. I took it to mean like if we don't, for example,
Building.
if we were to say we're no longer going to use the elementary school, then just choose.
Oh, okay.
And then we said, we've got to let the state know that that is available. If we, for example, said, hey, we want to sell it and we've got a buyer, XYZ company wants to buy it, we have to make it known that that is being out there. And there's
Put it on waivers essentially.
right for first refusal in there, and there's all kinds of things that the implication of doing that. But right now, we don't have anything in the district, any unused facilities.
Say, what if the town wanted it? Would they get, how did that work out?
The way the statute?
Yeah,
No.
they'd stand in line behind charter schools.
Yes,
Well, that's if we
that's
don't
local
use it
control at
within
its
2
best,
years.
Tony.
So,
Well, what define
Maybe my
use,
tongue is firmly in my
right?
cheek
If
when I
we're
say
park,
that,
if
but-
we park stuff in the parking lot or we keep boxes in the.
That's being used in my mind.
Usually is.
yeah.
We go over there and play
No
street
plan.
hockey in the parking lot. Is that you?
Well, that's a good question. I don't know.
Well, the other thing it frustrates me is that many, many years ago, there was discussions about when there was a building proposal to replace the elementary school, there were discussions about having the elementary school, be turned over to the town. And they would use it for town offices, police, and all kinds of things. Now, we would not be able to necessarily do that if a charter school decided, no, that looks prime. Lakefront property.
Then we
But
have to
would they-
justify keeping it.
No, again,
And then you
I'm
have
not
a
worried about it
whole lot of
until the time
questions.
comes,
Would
but
they have to buy it or would they?
the charter school, yeah, buy, lease, whatever arrangement that we wanted to make, but yes.
Well, this might be a hair split that's not really germane, but it does sound like it's neither used or planned to be used within 2 years. So if we knew a year out, we weren't going to continue using it, we could do whatever we wanted with it. But if we let it sit for 2 years, then the charter school has the right.
So that automatically,
I think we have to make them aware, the state anyways, yearly on unused.
Right. So if we, but after.
Again,
Yeah.
we're not in that situation. I'm
No,
not
I
gonna go
That's why I said I
hypothetical.
don't want to.
but I just wanted
Sort
to
of a weird thing.
Well, the thing
Well,
is, I
yes,
heard,
you can interpret however you want why it was done, but anyway.
like Deerfield, they have their police it's a school building.
That happened before the legislation.
Oh, okay.
And this has just happened in the last number of years.
this is just one more thing to make it more difficult to operate a public school essentially.
Yes.
What it seems like to me.
Yeah, I'm not.
Okay, cool. Make it harder for us to operate on our own.
Anything else on policy FAA? All right, next one is FG, Capital Improvement Plan, and this has been revised and recoded, so it's no longer Capital Improvement Plan. I've got to pull it up, so it is renamed Facility Development Goals and Preparation of Capital Improvements Plan. If nothing, we can get more wordy.
Yeah, why not?
And in essence, what we're adding, and it's at the very end, capital improvement program, the superintendent will prepare an updated long-range capital improvement plan to be reviewed at least every 2 years. That identifies the school district facility goals, provides projected expenditures, and outlines procedure and guidelines to be followed to accomplish board and district goals. This program will be provided to the Department of Education pursuant to RSA 198:15, that's that RSA 198 again, -A, so that the state can project funds needed for building projects occurring in the district and elsewhere. Why they're worried about it? Because they don't fully fund everything now. I don't know why, but they're worried about it. But the legislature in their infinite wisdom had to add more on us.
More reporting for us to do, but I'm happy because it says the superintendent will prepare it, so I can
Exactly. We're
get back.
we're looking out for you.
It does not.
I like the bottom line where it says, the fact that the district plan should be more comprehensive than the program that is to be reported to the DOE. Are they expecting something else than what we already have?
No, what we do is more than what is being asked, the statute, I believe. Because we do the 20 years what we do,
Yeah.
as we know. I don't have to explain it, but for the people listening, we've got a 20-year plan, very comprehensive. We do it every year because for the capital improvement committee, but that's another story for another day.
We just don't send it to them.
So now we have to start.
So now they want us to send it to them. It's
Yeah.
fine. Yeah.
Haven't met in a year and a half.
Because
Want to send it to.
DOE doesn't have enough to do.
Does the town have to send this to? I just want
Department of Education, I don't think so.
to the state at least.
No, this is just in, for the DOE. Because they don't apparently have enough to do.
That makes one of us.
Any other questions on FG capital? And again, it's no longer capital. It's gonna be facility development goals and preparation of capital improvement plan. Anything else on that? All right, moving on. New revised policy, second reading. There are no revisions to either policy, so policy EBBD, indoor air quality. We get a motion for that.
I'll make a motion to accept policy EBBD, indoor air quality.
Second,
A second.
second by Steve. Discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Motion passes unanimously. Next up is policy KFA, conduct on school property / assaults. Get a motion for that policy, please.
I'll make a motion that we accept policy KFA, conduct on school property / assaults.
Second,
I'll second.
second Joe. Discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. Next up, strategic plan update, Terry.
District calendar. The calendar is in process. I believe Meredith over at Winnicott has,
Before you,
oh, sorry.
if you could, for the people at home, explain what one we're doing.
We have to, our district calendar now, basically.
Nope. It is the,
Strategic plan update?
which goal?
Oh, there you go.
All right, that's what I was trying to.
Yeah, we're updating universal supports for all students in both academic and behavior tier 1 instruction.
Thank you.
One of the goals was to approve a school calendar and increase the differentiated learning professional development opportunities throughout the school year. We are currently, the calendar is almost done. Meredith over at Winnicott basically aligned all the SST calendars all up. I think we're getting ready to move that forward. One of the things that we do like, instead of front loading all the PD, we tend to have more of it throughout the year, which gives us an opportunity that when we discover we need to work on something that we didn't get to, it gives us an opportunity.
Are they still doing Tuesdays? A lot of Tuesdays?
I don't think so. I mean, election day, yep, there's 2 election days in there.
That's right, the primary. I mean, general election
And, presidential.
in ours.
I'm gonna be honest with you too, there's, a lot of schools are doing the, January, what is it? 3 schools, I think, are taking,
Thursday and Friday, you mean?
yeah, and we're not, but
Friday?
Thursday and Friday after the 1st, instead of coming back on Thursday and Friday, they're just extending that Christmas break out 2 more days, coming back on Monday.
We'll have that discussion in a couple.
Okay, but anyways,
What is their SST schedule looking like?
actually, we're not, so we're in
No,
the
no, no,
ninth.
no.
Others, it wouldn't matter.
What I mean is, what is
I don't know, I
SST
have
doing?
To see what I think,
Well,
I don't know what extra doing.
They were looking to change that.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know.
They were looking to change it to actually have Thursday and Friday off, I think.
I should have shut my mouth. I
Further into June?
into the weeds.
Ugh.
Sorry. But basically, the calendar's almost completed. It'll probably be done, either for the January or early February board meeting.
So they only have, they have, 2 Tuesday in service days.
Well, I just-
Service day.
And those, I'm assuming, are election days?
Yeah.
Because, for example, this year they've got the Tuesday after Martin Luther King Day.
We actually moved it to Friday. They still took the day, but everybody went with Friday instead of Tuesday.
Good. Good.
So more for us than the Tuesday. All right, increase the number of professional development days. We kind of did that when we redid the calendar the first time around, so we really haven't increased anymore, so that's kind of a stay put. We haven't done anything with that. Let's see here, develop a professional development plan for the school year for differentiated learning, vertical alignment. we are having UDL, Universal Design for Learning presentation to the whole staff on January 16th. This is an introduction to UDL, and the goal is to have all students have an equal opportunity to learn with differentiated instruction. UDL is basically, it makes learning more accessible in general education classrooms, which is where most kids with learning and attention issues spend most or all of the school day. Presents information in a way that adapts to the learner instead of making the learner adapt to the information. Gives kids more than one way to interact with material. UDL builds in flexibility that can make it easier for kids to use their strengths to work on their weaknesses. Reduces stigma by giving a variety of options to all students. UDL doesn't single out the few who receive formal accommodations as part of an IEP and 504 plan. So the state's actually offering this UDL for free. So we've got 2 presenters coming in on the 16th to get the ground rolling with this.
Are they state people or are they contracted?
They're not state people, they're contracted people. The state is offering it through.
And I just
They're gonna look all over that.
Could we, maybe in February, have a report out on that to the board?
Yep.
No, a brief, obviously, we don't want a 6.5 hour presentation.
Yeah.
Just a presentation for us. And is that the entire day is gonna be that for?
4 hours and 4 hours. So it's half the day. Gosh, you'd ask me what the other stuff they got done.
No. I know it can't be 4 and 4 because
Well, let me look at the schedule.
that equals 8 and that's longer than the day, so math. I guess what I'm looking for is, so all 3 schools are gonna be going through this, at not necessarily the same time, but I don't care.
Okay, 7 through 12. That's how we're splitting it up.
Okay.
I can give you a heads up here.
Which is fine.
Okay.
All good. Thank you.
Yep. Pete, Joanne and I are actually, we just talked about this today with the principals. Determine grouping for grades 4 and 8 scheduled on individual academic levels. Tom and I discussed that again today. They're still working on that. And on a side note, Pete and shared his schedule with me. The new high school schedule that they're rolling out. They're talking about before we bring it to you. Remember, we talked about the new high school schedule.
They were talking about
Yeah.
doing something, yeah.
Yep, so I've actually got a meeting with, I just emailed Pete and Joanne. I'd like to meet with them and discuss before moving forward. So we're just fine tuning that.
Yep. The grouping of the students for 4th and 8th, when that is completed, could we get a presentation on that also?
Yep.
I know that's not gonna happen soon, but
Yep.
thank you.
I don't think grades 4 and 5 will be moving because they're looping, so it'd be grades 6, 7, and 8. 4 and 5 have self-contained classrooms as a regular elementary class, so they're not gonna be, okay,
Well, it says 4 to 8, so.
I know, but I think might have to change that to be 6, 7, and 8.
Well, I guess the issue, do we still have that issue where we've got potentially somebody in 5th grade at a 2nd grade math?
Yeah, but I think there's more. I don't think this, how can I say here? Let me ask Tom. Yes, that's still an issue. But I think that there's more pullout and stuff that can happen at that level during math time.
Because the whole intent was
Yeah.
so that doesn't happen, so that you walk into class and you're.
Because it's more like an elementary classroom where service.
Well, I understand the difference, but again, if we have that substantial gap.
Yeah.
Isn't that preventing the student coming in? I mean, not preventing, the students coming in knowing I'm gonna be lost already?
Yeah.
They may not think of it that way, but at that age.
Again, at 5th grade and 4th grade, I think it's not as prevalent when math is happening all day long in grades 6, 7, and 8 and how.
I understand the difference.
Oh, yeah.
But if you could just let us know what the plan is, because that's the concern, right? I mean, because at the lower grades, it's not as prevalent that you have those bigger discrepancies than once you start moving up into the middle school.
Work with the consultants at the district level to improve differential learning, like I mentioned. We're still using West Ed. They're actually walking through classes more, providing more, what do I want to say? Classes going on instead of doing the workshop, they're observing classes. I think that happened in the fall. And like I said, on 1/3, on January 16th, we have the UDL coming in.
West Ed is doing the middle school?
Yep.
What are we doing at the elementary and the high school?
That's gonna be the UDL. West Ed's been a contract that Bob's had for years.
Why not?
Yeah, and so that's kind of, it's not as big as it was. We still had some money that we had, that was allocated to them, so we're kind of weaning off of that a little bit.
But one of the goals is to.
That's what
do that practice.
Which is UDL, which is differentiated instruction, which would be district-wide.
Okay.
Cause that's where the district's on differentiated learning. As I said, we're ongoing, we're looking at that. And we're gonna make more determinations after the UDL presentation. And focus on behavior health, investigate the feasibility. And again, we continue to advertise, for a BCBA. We just haven't hired anybody because it's in contracted services. One of the deals where we're off, you know, it's just like with speech and all these other things, we have postings up, but nobody's biting.
Is it salary?
I think it's more, to be honest with you, somewhat of a monopoly by non-compete clauses that these individuals, when they get hired by these contracted services, they have a non-compete clause, which means if they're working in our building or we're contracted with them, we can't hire them.
But we can hire other people's contractors.
Yes, but again, nobody's biting.
No, I understand, but, so it's not, we're limited by, if company XYZ is in the building, then we're limited by that. But if their XYZ is in Deerfield, we can go poach.
Yeah.
Like a better way of saying it.
Yes.
Somebody that's over there.
Yes, but I would say that,
And the reason I ask is because we know how important it is to have that individual.
Yep.
And if it's monetary, then that's a decision we've got to come. If it's not a monetary issue, then we don't need to address it. But that's what I'm trying to drive at is what do we think the issue is?
it's the non-competes. It's that the outside contractors, we had somebody and they, nope, see you later. And I ran it by our attorneys and they're like,
Well, I understand.
yeah, I'm just saying, so that's the issue. Yeah, I don't like it either, but
Well,
So you're saying if we have a contracted service and they send someone here and they work here, we can't hire that person because they are currently working?
correct.
I mean, I
The-
can understand why that would be a thing. I mean,
It is what it is.
yeah, I mean, I get it. You wouldn't.
Yeah.
You run that risk every time you send somebody somewhere. I mean,
And so let me just say, it's one of those things like too with the nurses. It's, they are, those BCBAs are in extremely high demand.
that's why I was asking if,
Yep. I would say every school now is trying to hire their own because they know the value of that individual and the value of having that same individual every single day. However, the amount of money they're making through these contractors, you know what I'm saying? Schools can't afford to pay them. Because it's such a specialized, well, we can't, you're right, John, we can. Well, it just causes a rift. I'm just being honest with you with, yeah,
I just want to make sure because whatever we're paying for a BCBA,
Oh.
I'm assuming we could pay them and give them benefits for less than what we're paying.
correct.
The issue becomes you could have qualified candidates to apply. And if we're not getting that, then what is it that's preventing us? If is it something that the board can,
Maybe that's something we need to take a look at is what we're going to offer them for pay.
I'd rather have that conversation. And if it means, what do we need to do? What are the implications of doing that?
Okay.
And what does it save us?
Yep.
Because, the budget committee was all over that last night in the sense that, we're hiring people, but we're saving all that money by bringing the person in. And it only makes sense if we can do it, because as we talked about earlier, Jana, the BCB, the BA that we have now, I think I got her name right.
I know you're not going to, Jana, Jana.
But anyways,
Yeah.
doing very well for us.
Yep.
Obviously, but hopefully if we can get somebody internally.
Yep.
Vested for long term. So that's all.
and that's the kind of thing you would want consistency in that position. You don't want them to potentially be coming and sending somebody in once
Right.
a month or, leaving
Correct.
after 3 days.
Thank you.
Do we have any kind of a non-compete? In the contract that we have for the contracted services, do we have any, for lack of a better term, like a non-poaching contract?
Us?
No. We have this person, Jana, through the contracted services, is there anything in our contract with those folks that says we can't offer her a job directly?
Yeah, I think.
Yeah, yeah.
That's
Well,
what I'm saying.
The employee, I mean, if I'm the BCBA, I've signed something with the company I'm working for that says I will not, I can't leave them,
Field
leave
offers,
you
yeah.
for Raymond School District, whatever my contract is. Isn't that the?
Yes, and there's penalties
There's
for us to
gonna
do that, Mike said would be on the hook for.
be a
Right.
window there where they can
It's a year.
quit and take a week off and
I-
come back and take a job.
I think it's a lot more days than.
Yeah,
A month?
Hmm.
We could factor that into
yeah,
the hiring bonus.
yeah.
But anyways, so if you could look at it, if it's pursuing, that's all I'm asking.
I'll talk to Jody and we'll get some figures. Once again, assess district-wide behavior supports needed through classroom observations, data collection. We just had that presentation tonight with Sam. We continue to look at all of the data, efficiencies, deficiencies, I'm just, while things are going well and Sam really pointed that out, I can also say too, we struggle with getting those, behavior people at the elementary in and get them to assess when those kids are heightened. It's just due to the fact that they're teaching SEL, their availability. That is a struggle down there because it does seem like there's, littler kids have a little harder time getting regulated and talking. So it's harder to us to assess that and get those guidance counselors. And not so much a social worker, but that first layer of guidance counselors in. We're working on it. Jessica's working extremely hard. And Sam and I know they've had multiple meetings looking at schedules, lunch groups, and all that stuff to try to make sure that that's happening.
Do we have to continue the way we're doing it this year?
We're actually, we talked again today about UA schedules and part of that and pulling them out of the UA, moving forward, making it maybe just 2 grades instead of 4 grades. So yes, everything is on the table.
Okay, I just thinking that, because sometimes we look at it and go, well, we'll look at it for next year.
Yeah.
But does it make sense if we can do it?
Yep.
As seamlessly as possible?
Yes.
In the year,
Yep.
then it might benefit us long-term, doing it. Short-term pain for long-term gain.
Yep, we just talked about it again today when we met this morning at 7:30. I gotta move that away on those long nights too. Jeez. I'm rolling in.
Little did you
We're
know.
all hopping in. I'm like, oh, wait a second, I need some coffee. I think that concludes.
I think so.
Yep.
Any other questions, comments on the strategic plan? Thank you, Terry. Uh-oh. Get the,
Next to.
we're just gonna skip what's that? Oh,
Yeah.
next up, nominations, resignation.
I have one resignation, Jennifer Haywood, school board clerk, and that's gonna be effective January 5th, 2024.
Denied.
We get a motion, please?
Regrettably, I'll make a motion to accept Jennifer Haywood's resignation. Board clerk effective January 5th, 2024.
Get a second?
Regrettably. Second.
And I've already had a conversation with Jen, but thank you very much, Jen. As I conveyed to you, gonna be hard to replace, so thank you.
Yes.
I was hoping it was just gonna disappear every time I looked at the agenda. So I put it down, so.
I'll be honest, I didn't get a chance to look before I got here and I was scrolling through and I was like,
Well,
I will be honest,
poof.
I read the qualifications for the school board clerk first, and I was like, why are we doing that?
yeah, well, now you know. All right, all those in favor? Aye. Motion passes unanimously.
good luck, Jen. Thank you.
Next up.
We got no acting like you're never coming back there.
Plus, yeah.
You guys portrayed that idea that, oh, you're acting like this is the last day.
We don't have a source of information right next to us.
I mean,
My game.
there's a void now. I don't know what to do.
Harry's gonna have to bring the 6-pound book of
Yeah.
RSA's and everything like that.
All right, school board clerk job description. We've got, this is created for going forward. Questions, comments?
What's the pay on this job?
Currently 125.
That was 135.
I'm sorry, 135. And it, in the budget to go up by $10.
My wife can do this job.
I think she can, if she applied. The questions, comments about the job description? The only question I had, which was, under essential job functions, and just to, it's more of a housekeeping issue. It reads that needs to get back to in this case, Jennifer, the administrative assistant to the superintendent by Tuesday. Can we just word it in like 4 days, whatever?
Oh, yes. Yes.
Just so that we have a meeting on Monday, they don't get thinking they have to, whatever.
Yep, thank you.
And if you could refresh my memory, Jen, I was trying to find it and then I got lost and I didn't end up finishing the task. Non-public, is it 72 hours that has to be available? So should it be differentiate in there for that? Because it has to be given to you earlier, right? Okay, thank you.
Or just a physical copy can be at the SAU and so it gets posted, right? That's
Right, but it has to
solves
get
that
to the,
issue, right?
it has to get to the SAU, and that's the whole point of this, is so that Jen has it so that she can then post it and make it available.
I would hope whoever does the job wouldn't live so far away they can, or even electronically send a
Yeah.
copy of minutes.
This just gives them a
Electronic mail.
timeline that they need to follow. Anything else on the job description? If not, I'll entertain a motion to approve the amended version.
I'll make a motion to accept, school board clerk job description as amended.
Get a second?
Second.
Second by Cindy. Discussion?
I have a question.
Go ahead.
What's the 5% outside?
Gotta walk inside the school.
Oh, across the parking lot? Yes. I've yet to do anything outside. Oh, the bus stop stuff, right?
Yeah, we did the bus.
All right, I'll give that 5%.
All right.
Actually, if she came here during COVID, she would have had to stand outside with me and take notes.
Anything else? All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. Next up, committee reports. I've got a couple things, but the first one is the CIP is going to be meeting Wednesday, January 10th. This came about after Christmas. I'm frustrated with the process. I'm not sure. I asked for an agenda this morning and I haven't seen one yet. So I don't know if we need Terry and potentially Marjorie and our Todd potentially there that night. I don't know.
I can find out about that.
Well, got an email into Denise and Denise said she's checking with Scott. So I'm hoping Scott gets back to it at some point so that we can let the administration know whether they need to be present. Because again,
He's probably watching right now.
the budget committee is going to weigh in on the warrant article tomorrow night. So I'm not sure how productive it is going to be to go through a process that is already completed for the school. The town, they're going to meet Tuesday and the public hearing, and then they're going to meet on the Wednesday. I understand potentially, I heard through the grapevine that it's related to impact fees, but again, very little information is being put forth, and it's very frustrating for me as one member of the CIP. And then to try to coordinate that for the district. Go ahead.
Sorry, is there a tentative time?
6, I think. I'll forward that to
What day
you.
was
I
it?
just want to.
It is 6.
Wednesday, the 10th.
Put it tentatively on
Yep.
my calendar, just in case.
Yeah, a week from tonight. Anybody else on committee?
Well, I don't have a committee. I haven't checked. Do you know when the next SST meeting is? Because I don't have it. It's not on my calendar.
While we're looking for that, there was a budget committee
The
meeting
other one before.
and, talk about how things were great 10 years ago and such. Other than that, it's pretty standard.
You know what, Joe? I don't have it either.
It was on there. I could have swore I had it
Yeah,
on there.
I'll email
before.
Pam.
It was a meeting.
What,
One
that
minute.
was the budget committee?
They're asking about SST, and then the
Oh,
budget committee was last night.
About, the budget committee where
They have,
reflected on,
they
10 years
recommended a
ago,
budget
it was-
of, like we talked about earlier, $317,880 less than our proposed. In essence, they suggested specifically the project for EEI has been proposing. And then for the capital budget committee his public hearing, or the action, not the public hearing, it's more of their vote on recommending or not recommending our 2 capital reserve funds will happen tomorrow night. Anybody else for committees? I do have one request, Terry, if we could get clarification from Todd, because it was a lot of things discussed last night about the boilers, the wood chips. What does it take, if anything, to use wood pellets as opposed to wood chips? My memory was kind of foggy on the issue as to what Mike talked about. So if we get Todd to clarify so that we could convey that tomorrow night, maybe if we can get it in that time, not that it impacts the budget committee, but just so that they're aware of. Because there was a very concern about only 2 suppliers for wood chips in the state. What Mike conveyed to us was there hasn't been an issue on pricing, but there is a concern, so.
I have a question.
Go ahead.
Would it be helpful to, like, point them to the video that we discussed it with tell them what day it was that we had the guy come, they could go watch the video, because a lot of the questions they asked were the same ones we asked.
Yep.
If you just gave that, say, hey, watch.
We could convey that, but I think if we could just tell them the information tomorrow night, I think it would be, but again, it's all out there that, yeah, we can reiterate to them that these are the nights that we discussed this. Because again, it's a moot point to a matter that in that right now we don't have in our budget, that doesn't exist. Or it's not our budget anymore. It's the budget committees. But anyways. Nothing else on the committee reports? All right. Next up, superintendent's report. Terry.
We're starting to discuss our summer plans. We're looking, responsive classroom. We had a lot of new teachers who haven't had the training yet. And so we're looking at having some workshops over the summer. So to utilize so that they can get up to speed and up to date on that responsive classroom training, intro training. We're also looking at refresher, responsive classroom training. Looking at our admin retreat and maybe bringing in a speaker or 2 to talk to us. Jessica's got some ideas, but we really haven't settled on that yet. And then she's got a lot, yeah, she's and then,
More axe throwing.
I mean, we had a nice holiday break and I will say, I did my little elf on a building and it was a lot of fun to see the kids walking in and how surprised and excited they were when they saw me. And kudos to Todd, kudos to the staff for bringing the bus kids around, stepping outside, doing a little extra work to make sure that all the kids got to see it.
That was awesome.
Yeah, thank you.
Well, I saw an MUR, they had.
That's some dude from Iowa. You got some guy right here in Raymond. I saw that too.
So I put your picture in
Thank you. Yeah,
Oh.
yeah, man. I agree. Thank you. Iowa.
You might
Iowa.
be famous.
Yeah.
Might be going-
I will say this, I'm not originally, my buddy back home did this. And so I did steal it. I emailed him and said, listen, I'm going to take that from you. Hey, go right ahead. It's not the first, but he was, I will say this, wasn't an original idea. So I did steal it.
Yeah. Well, I figured that,
Yeah.
you know.
Well,
It's
come on,
still
man.
big.
That's some original.
Put on the outfit, climb up
Yeah,
there, right?
yeah. Well, yeah. My wife is still yelling at me. Sherry, I bounce. I can bounce. And we did not let anybody outside know about it either. So,
On the hush hush.
yes,
Very good. Thank you, Terry.
About what?
nothing.
Exactly. Correspondence or other? All right, manifest, has that been signed? I don't know if that got passed around.
They have been. Accounts payable tonight, 482,236,000. Payroll, $463,531.76. $945,768. Thank you.
Thank you, Margaret. And you said it was signed, is that right? We get a motion to go into non-public, please?
I'll make a motion on the non-public section on the RSA 91-A, colon 3, Roman numeral 2M.
Second.
Joe,
Yes.
Cindy,
Yes.
Tony,
Yes.
Steve,
Yes.
myself, yes. Thank you.